Yashakoyach. There's a fascinating Magen Avram in Hilchos Shavuos who says, Beleil Shavuos, on the night of Shavuos, Ein mekatchin al hakois ad seis hakoichovim. One should not make Kiddush before seis hakoichovim. We can make Kiddush not only after the Shkia, we can even usher in Shabbos early and Yom Tov early, but he says, you should not make Kiddush on the night of Shavuos ad seis hakoichovim. L'ksiv, Tmimois tehiyena. It would seem that Tmimois tehiyena, it's a Sheva Shabbosos Tmimois tehiyena, that you should have 7 full weeks of Sfira Soimer, and if you will make Kiddush early, so you subtract it from the fullness, from the completeness of the 7 weeks, because you brought in the Kedusha of Shavuos before the 7 weeks are complete. Therefore, you should not make Kiddush before. The question is, what do you accomplish by not making Kiddush before? We should say you shouldn't daven Ma'ariv before, because if you daven Ma'ariv before Tzeis HaKoichovim, you created this problem because you made it Yom Tov with davening Ma'ariv. As the Gemara says in Brochus Daf Chov Zayin Amud Beis, that Rav davened Shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos. He davened the Ma'ariv of Shabbos on erev Shabbos before night. And the Gemara says that he was bodil mi malacha. Once you davened the tefillah of Shabbos, you have to refrain from doing malacha. In other words, you're taking upon yourself the kedusha of Yom Tov with the davening. So, what are we accomplishing by making the kiddush late if we davened Ma'ariv early? So the Taz really says, Ma'achrin lahaschil arvis b'knisas shvuos. He says that you shouldn't daven Ma'ariv early, because by davening Ma'ariv early, you created this problem. But the Magen Avram nevertheless says you should make Kiddush after Tzeis HaKoichovim. He seems not to be bothered by davening Ma'ariv. The truth is that the source of this is in the Sefer Emek Brocha of Rabbi Avram Halevi Horovitz, the father of the Shloah HaKodesh. And over there, it's Mefurish that we only are bothered by making the Kiddush early. We're not bothered by davening early. But we don't know why. So the Shloah, in the beginning of his Maseches Shavuos, which is not related to the Maseches Shavuos and Shas, which is about oaths. The Maseches Shavuos and the Shloah is about the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Anyway, in the beginning of the Maseches Shavuos and the Shloah, he writes, V'kibalti mi moiri hagoyin, maharash mi Lublin. That's Reb Shloime, Reb Leibish's son, who was a Talmud of the Marshal, and he was a Rav of Lublin after the Marshal. And the Shloah says that I was makabel from him, Shekibel ishmi pi hagoyin Rabbeinu Yaakov Polak Zal. That this was a Masorah that they received from Rabbi Yaakov Polak, who was the Avi Shitas HaPilpul in Poland, after the Gzeres Tachtat. Sheloi lasos Kiddush v'lechol b'leil rishon shel Chag HaShavuos ad Tzeis HaKoichovim. And the Shloah goes on to explain, V'hatam mipnei shebesfiro ksiv sheva Shabbosos tmimois tehiyena. V'im kein, kishemekadesh ba'oid yoim mechaser oisoi hamiktzes mi mem tes yimei hasfira. If you make it early, you're taking off that piece of the day, because you're making it Shavuos. He says, Shahari Chag HaShavuos hu la'achar hasfira. U'ksheyesh hasfira eino Shavuos. You can't, have your cake and eat it too, or something like that. Yeah? It's a tarti desastre. U'kshemekadesh im kein mekabel al atzmei hachag u'mechaser oisei hamiktzes mimei hasfira v'nimtzo she'einon tmimois. And he says, V'al teshivenu. So, but don't ask on me. That doesn't bother us. The Reb Oishia, the Gemara, that same Gemara in Shabbos says that Reb Oishia daven shel Motzoi Shabbos b'Shabbos. He davened the Ma'ariv of Motzoi Shabbos before Shabbos was out. Afal gav da'adayin mamish Shabbos gomor. Even though avada by davening the Motzoi Shabbos, the Ketfilah on Shabbos, you can't make it Ois Shabbos. So therefore, the fact that you're davening early, the Ma'ariv of Shavuos, doesn't bother us. So we see, first of all, that the Shlo was dealt with this issue. Yeah, and he explained, but what he explained is really very schwer, because it's true that in that Gemara it says that Reb Oishia daven shel moitzoi Shabbos b'Shabbos, and Avada it didn't become Ois Shabbos. But it's mefurish in that Gemara that if you daven shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos, you have to be perish mimalacha. The Gemara says, Reb Yirmiyah bar Abba said to Rav, you that you daven shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos, are you perish mimalacha? Do you refrain from doing malachas, or do you not refrain? And he said, I refrain. And then the Gemara asks the kasha that we have a story with Reb Oven that said, Pamachas ispal Rebbe shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos, and then he was nichnas l'merchatz v'yotzav v'sholala. And the Gemara concludes that only if you davened by mistake, you thought it was night, and it wasn't night, then it's not mechayiv prisha mimalacha. But if you davened, you were aware of the fact that you're davening early, you make it Shabbos with your tefillah. So, why does it help me that he says that we find that Rabbi Ishia, when he davened shel moitzoi Shabbos b'Shabbos, and even though it was still Shabbos, how does that help explain how you could daven the Shavuos the Tefillah mi ba'od yoim? When you daven the Shavuos the Tefillah ba'od yoim, all the hilchas Yom Tov is chal on you, and it is Shavuos, and therefore we should have a problem. So l'chorah he didn't answer the question. Okay, so this is a very, very difficult thing, and I want to attempt to maybe save shot. You know, in the Meiser Rav, which is things in the name of the Goin, of the Gro, it says like this: Ayin Simin Reish Ayin Aleph b'Mogen Avram Sif Kotten Hei Shekosav v'nirali v'imroitze lekabel HaShabbos mi ba'od yoim ulekadesh v'lechoil ulehispalel arvis balaylo rashoy. The Mogen Avram says that if somebody, there's only minyan in town is a late minyan, and his children want to go to sleep, so he wants to make the Suda early, so he could be Mekabel Shabbos verbally, without davening. He could be Mekabel Shabbos, he could make Kiddush, he could eat the Suda, and then go to Shul and daven on Shabbos. That's what the Mogen Avram says. So the Meiser Rav brings V'shamati b'shem hagoyin hachosid she'omar shezeh eino nochon. This is not right. Mida amrinam bebrachos Rav tzoli shel Shabbos ve'erev Shabbos and oimer kedusha al hakois. The Gemara asks, he davened shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos, did he also make Kiddush mi ba'od yoim? And the Gemara says, yes, he also made Kiddush mi ba'od yoim. And the Omer Rav Nachman HaMashmul mispal lodom shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos va'oimer kedusha al hakois. Says the Goin, mashma dafke k'shemispalel tchila oz yochol lekadesh mi ba'od yoim. Aval k'she'einem mispalel yochol lekadesh. He says, it seems from this Gemara that only if you davened could you make Kiddush. But if you didn't daven, and you just verbally ushered in the Shabbos somehow, that doesn't allow you to make Kiddush. And therefore he disagrees with the Mogen Avram based on the mashmos of this Gemara. And he says, V'chein motzasi b'Ravon, one of the Rishonim, Simen Kuf Ayin, shekosav ha'mitzpal shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos mi ba'od yoim, midas v'kadesh nami al hakois mi ba'od yoim. So how did the Ravan say it? He said, ha'mispalel shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos mi ba'od yoim, midas. Yeah, he was conscious of the fact that it isn't Shabbos yet, and he davened shel Shabbos, then he could make Kiddush. So it's mashma, dafka she'ispal tchila. But why, what's the idea? Why is that? So it would seem that the Goyen holds that the Kiddush has to take place. I mean, at first glance, what's his problem? What's wrong with somebody that was Mekabel Shabbos, and he wants to make Kiddush? Why does he have to daven? So, first of all, it would seem that the Goyen holds that the Kiddush has to be in a time that's already Shabbos. And it's not enough that it's becoming Shabbos with the Kiddush. It has to be Kiddush before, it has to be Shabbos before you make the Kiddush. And so it's mashma, and the Gemara explains the Shita of Beis Shammai that Mekadesh al ha-yoim, v'achar kach Mekadesh al hayayin. We make first the Boyer Priyagofen, and then we say the bracha of Mekadesh HaShabbos. Beis Shammai held otherwise, and the Gemara says that the reason behind Beis Shammai is because Kvar Nichnas Hayoim V'adayin Loi Kiddush, that the day comes before the Kiddush. So it seems that it needs to be Shabbos before you make Kiddush, maybe. And that's why the Goyen doesn't like this scenario, but in the Hagoy's Pu'ulos Sochir, he says that it still doesn't explain anything, because the Magen Avraham is talking about Im roitze lekabel olav Shabbos mi ba'oid yoim ulekadosh v'lechol ulespal arvis mishach hashecha. So the Magen Avraham is not talking about somebody who's making it Shabbos with his Kiddush. He's talking about somebody who verbally took upon himself the Shabbos before he made the Kiddush. So what could be the problem? Why would the Goyen hold that only if you daven Ma'ariv already could you make Kiddush? But if you took upon yourself the Shabbos before the Kiddush, not through Ma'ariv, you can't make Kiddush. So it would be possible that the Goyen holds that there's no such a thing as taking upon yourself Shabbos b'dibur ba'alma. You can't verbally yosher in the Shabbos. There's a ritva in Rosh Hashanah Daf Tes that says about Tosefes Shabbos, the Tosefes zu eina b'dvarim u'bitul malacha b'lvad. You can't make it Shabbos with dvarim, or by refraining from doing malacha b'lvad. Ela sheyosifenu b'dvarim shel kedusha. You have to take in the Shabbos with dvarim shel kedusha. He says oy b'tefillah, oy b'kiddush. And so it says in the Orchis Chaim of Rabbi Aaron HaKohen Milunil, in the Dinei Hadlokas Ner, he says v'kiven shekibloi also lasis malacha ve'eino kabbalah la'oisroi koydem zmanoi ela bebracha kigoin tefillah oy kiddush. Okay, now, so both these Rishonim are saying that you can't be mekadesh with some talking, but it has to be b'tefillah oy b'kiddush. But now, if the Goyen holds in principle like these Rishonim, but he also holds that it's dafka tefillah and it's not with kiddush, maybe because Kiddush is taka a bracha, but maybe it needs to be Shabbos before you make the Kiddush. So therefore he holds that you can't do what the Magen Avraham said, that you take upon yourself the Shabbos and then you make the Kiddush, because there's no such thing as taking upon yourself the Shabbos not via a bracha. And therefore the Goyen is against what the Magen Avraham said. You know, the Rabbeinu Yoina, over there in Brachas Daf Chav Zayin, talks about the fact that Rav was solely shel Shabbos ve'erev Shabbos. The Rabbeinu Yoina says, even though by doing so, he lost out on smichus geula letfilah, because the Kriya Shema, he can't be yotzeh. He has to say Kriya Shema over later, so he's not doing smichus geula letfilah. Hainu mishum shoy miskaven lemitzvah lohoisev mehachoil ala kodesh umishum hachi loichayish lesmichus geula letfilah. That the value of Meisifin min hachoil ala kodesh overrides the value of smichus geula letfilah, and therefore Rav davened early, said Kriya Shema later, even though he was losing out on smichus geula letfilah, because he wanted to be mekayim Meisifin min hachoil ala kodesh. No, if you could do Meisifin min hachoil ala kodesh with anything by just saying that I'm taking upon myself Shabbos, this is no reason for him to daven early. It's obvious from the Rabbeinu Yoina that he holds that you need to daven in order to make it Shabbos. And Memele, you could see from the Rabbeinu Yoina one of two things. Either he holds that you need dafka davening and Kiddush doesn't work for this purpose, or that he holds that you can't make Kiddush and make it Shabbos with a Kiddush because the Kiddush has to take place in a time that's already Shabbos. But in any case, this Rabbeinu Yoina supports the opinion of the Goyen that you cannot do what the Magen Avraham says, because if you could do what the Magen Avraham says, then how is the Rabbeinu Yoina telling me that Rav, for the purpose, for the sake of Meisifin min hachoil HaKodesh, he davened early? Now, even though this is possible in the Shita of the Raton maybe, but you know that I think it can't be the pshat in the Goyen, because if we're going to say that you can't be Mekabel Shabbos only through tefillah, like we l'chorah see in the Rabbeinu Yoina. So the Goyen should have made his comment in Siman Reish Samach Gimel, where it says in the Mechaber that with saying Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, it becomes Shabbos. Now Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos is not tefillah, and it's not a bracha. And if the Goyen would hold, I mean, look, the Rabbeinu Yoina obviously holds that Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos doesn't make it Shabbos, because if Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos makes it Shabbos, it doesn't explain why Rav had to daven the Shmoneh Esrei early, right? So if the Goyen would be following what it seems from the Rabbeinu Yoina, he wouldn't have waited to comment on the Magen Avraham. He would have commented on the Mechaber. And it said that it's not true. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos doesn't make Shabbos. So it seems like he's maskim. He agrees that Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos makes Shabbos. So if Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos makes Shabbos, why can't a Yid say Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos and make his Sudas Shabbos and go daven later? I mean, so what was the Goyen's problem with the Magen Avraham?
The Shaykh only the concern is that really bad saying I'm a Kabbalah Shabbos would work.
Would not.
Really, it would work.
Would.
Bad saying it would work. But the problem is, from the Kabbalah Shabbos, how can you know you see the Chiyuv Ma'ariv? Ma'ariv comes before the Suda. So maybe that itself is
I hear what you're suggesting.
Just a suggestion.
Right. But I want to suggest why I don't accept the suggestion. because first of all, you could be Mamana Shomer even at night. I mean, to remind you to daven. So the Goyen seems to have a principal issue with my Sifrim Me'achol HaKodesh, a principal issue that's not a Ma'ariv related problem, because there are solutions. Maybe the Magen Avraham. It's not, because Horaya, that even at night you could for sure do it. The Goyen doesn't say that you can't make Kiddush at night and daven later. He only says it in the Zman of Tosefes. So, okay, in the Shulchan Aruch, in the end of Reish Samach Aleph, the Mechaber says, Achar Aniyas Borchu, Afal Pisha Adayin Yoim, Ein Ma'arvin, Ve'ein Toimnin. There's the Issa D'Rabbanan to make an Eruv Tchumen, or an Eruv Chatzeres on Shabbos. Or Hatmana is an Isser D'Rabbanan. As soon as you answered Baruch, says the Mechaber, you were Mekabel Shabbos, and therefore you can't be Ma'arvin V'toimnin. And he adds, U'l'didan, Havi Amiras Mizmor Shir L'Yoim HaShabbos, Ka'ani as Baruch L'didhu. And it makes it Shabbos. This is in Reish Samach Aleph. Later on, in Reish Tzadik Gimel, the Mechaber brings two opinions about this. And the first opinion is the lenient opinion. He says, Echad Eruvei Chatzeres, Ve'echad Shitufei Muvois, Ma'arvin Oisam Bein HaShmoshes, Va'afilu Im Kvar Kibul Olav Tosefes Shabbos. V'yesh Oistrim Im Kibul Olav Tosefes Shabbos. So, there's a steer over here, because in Reish Tzadik Gimel he brings two opinions. He brings first the lenient opinion. Usually we assume that he wants to paskin like the first opinion. But in any case, he brings two opinions. In Reish Samach Aleph, he says unequivocally that you can't do these things that are Asur Midrabanan if you will Mekabel Shabbos. Ein Ma'arvin ve'ein Toimnin. So all the Achronim, bothered by this, the Bir Halacha brings various Achronim about this in Siman Reish Samach Aleph. The Noida B'Yehuda in his Hagoy's Dogul Mervava says as follows: V'nireh the Shom that in Reish Tzadik Gimel Ka'omar Shekibul Tosefes Shabbos. Yeah, we're talking in Reish Tzadik Gimel where the Mechaber brings also the lenient opinion. We're talking that he was Mekabel Tosefes Shabbos. V'mayri she'omar b'ferush she'Mekabel Tosefes Shabbos. In Kain lo kibul rak isur asay mishum hachi yesh lo hakol b'shvus. Somebody said, I'm taking upon myself Shabbos. The meaning of that is rak isur asay, like the Yom HaShvi Tishbos. Shemhachi yesh lahakol b'shvus d'Rabbanan. Yeah, even though in the Mordechai it's mashma not like that, but that's what the opinion of the Mechaber is. Aval kan mayri achar aniyas ome. In Reish Samach Aleph, he's not talking that a man just said, I'm taking upon myself Shabbos. He's talking Acher Aniyas Baruch Hu. Shemin Astam, the Kabul Kedushas Shabbos Mamish. Hishmit Das HaMekel. So this is a trailblazing, revolutionary Dogel Mervova who says that there are two levels of Kabbalah Shabbos. There's a Kabbalah Shabbos, which is ushering in the Kedushas HaShabbos early, but only on a level of Isser Aseh, but not making it fully Shabbos. And therefore, if you said, I'm taking upon myself Shabbos, Isuri D'Rabbanan are still not Noyeg, and that's the Stimas HaMachaber. I mean, that's the lenient opinion in Reish Tzaddik Gimel, but in Reish Samach Aleph, we're talking about Aniyas Baruch Hu. Aniyas Baruch Hu makes it Shabbos Mamish. So the Noda B'Yehuda is saying that there's a fundamental difference between davening Ma'ariv. In other words, he's saying you could take upon yourself Shabbos verbally, not like those Rishonim that seem to hold that only with tefillah. You see, the Machaber holds that you don't have to have tefillah. But Mizmor Shel Shabbos is not tefillah. But nevertheless, he says that there's a difference. If you took upon yourself the Shabbos verbally, it's not Mamish Shabbos. Whereas if you said Baruch Hu, then it becomes Mamish Shabbos. The Mashmois and the Dogel Mervova is that it becomes Shabbos for Chiyuv Skila. It's really a revolutionary thing, and nobody says the same thing. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says something similar. The Aruch HaShulchan writes about this. The Eini Yoidei Tam Bazeh. The Bal Korchach Koydem Alayla Havi Tosefes. I mean, what more is it than Tosefes just because he said Baruch Hu? But I want to say that if we could modify this Dogel Mervava, we could accept it, partially, as follows. A bit different. The Rashba in Brachas Daf Chav Zayin brings in the name of Miktsas Min HaGeonim that when Rav Nachman HaMashmul said Mispal Adam Shel Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos V'Omer Kedusha Al HaKois, it doesn't mean that from the point of Kabbalah Shabbos, you could already say Mispal Adam Shel Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos. You could already say Kedusha Al HaKois. This is really a very interesting thing because there's Geonim that they read the Gemara in a way that we'd never be able to read it. They say when Rav Nachman HaMashmul says Mispal Adam Shel Shabbos Be'erev Shabbos Ve'omer Kedusha Al HaKois, Ve'omer Kedusha Al HaKois means later when it's night. You can't say Kedusha Al HaKois now. This sheet is brought in the Sefer HaItim and in the Halachas Klulis of the Ritzgeus. And in other Rishonim, they bring such an opinion of the Goyim. So we see that these Goyim held as that Kiddush has to, in order to make Kiddush, it requires that it should be Shabbos. And Tosefes Shabbos is not a full-fledged Shabbos. And therefore, in the Zman of Tosefes Shabbos, you can't make Kiddush.
Isn't that against the Gemara above Basra Tzadi Zion?
Wow, what? 1 second. Now you're blowing me away completely. Because first of all, it's against the Gemara that they're talking about. Because the Gemara that they're talking about seems to say clearly that you could make Kiddush. But what's the Gemara in Bava Basra?
So Rava says you can sochei Adam v'omer alav Kiddush Hayom. So he's doing does not Shabbos.
Yeah, but
he's doing Kiddush.
1 second. But how fast? It's a very cute raya, first of all, I have to say. But what the Gemara is what the Gemara is discussing is that it doesn't have to be a yayin that's kosher for Nisucha yayin. It doesn't have to be aged wine, but it doesn't mean that it's not a half hour later. Soichet Adam doesn't mean that he's doing it right now. The Kiddush. I mean, you know that yourself. If you can bring such a raya, you know how to take it away. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is that that's the Miktsas Min HaGoyim. The Miktsas Min HaGoyim. Now in the Tosefes Harosh, the Tosefes Harosh over there says, and the Gemara says, the Rosh says, Kasol Kedaitoch, that the Gemara really was in doubt whether or not you could make Kiddush in the time of Tosefes. Mishum, the Kiddush Min HaTorah, who? Ein loy lo'amrim b'ayjoin. Because it's a Doiraisa. Zocher is Yom HaShabbos L'Katcha, even though Yayin is a D'Rabbanan, Kiddush Makasud is a D'Rabbanan, but Kiddush is a Doiraisa. Zocher is Yom HaShabbos L'Katcha. So the Gemara felt that you can't do it in this man of Tosefes, which is not Midoiraisa. Yeah, there's a machlokes rishonim, but the Rashba is saying Tosefes is not Nachar. And therefore, the Gemara was considering that you shouldn't be able to say Kiddush in the Zman of Tosefes. Umasik, shehoya oimer Kiddusha. Why? Mishum diksiv zocher es yom HaShabbos, the mashma samuch liknisasei. Mideloi ksiv zocher big yom HaShabbos. So it says zocher es yom HaShabbos, not zocher big yom HaShabbos. It doesn't have to be Shabbos when you're making Kiddush. And that's how the Rosh explains the Gemara. So the Rosh, you see, held that bemis when you're Kabul Tosefes Shabbos, it becomes Shabbos, but it's only on a rabbinic level that it becomes Shabbos. And since Kiddush is D'oraisa, so he's still struggling with how to explain the fact that you make Kiddush, and he comes up with this idea that the Kiddush could be made before Shabbos. Kiddush doesn't have to be on Shabbos, which is bemis mefurish in the Rambam also. The Rambam in Perek Chavtes Halacha Yudal says yesh lo adam lekadosh ala kois erev Shabbos mi ba'od yoim afal pi sheloi nichnesa Shabbos. And that's the Rambam l'shitosai, who doesn't believe Bechlal in Tosefes Shabbos. The Rambam only brings Tosefes by Yom Kippur. The Maggid Mishnah is mashma that the Rambam holds that on Shabbos there's a rabbinic Tosefes, but the Kesef Mishnah and the Beis Yosef, he says that the Rambam never mentioned Tosefes besides by Yom HaKippurim, and there is no Tosefes at all, not Midoraisa, not Midorabanan. So according to this, if you read the Gemara to be saying, not like that, Miktas Min HaGoinim, but you read the Gemara to be saying that you can make Kiddush after you were Mekabel Shabbos, it must be that it's not because it's Shabbos already, but because Kiddush doesn't require Shabbos. You can make Kiddush before Shabbos. Now, in the beginning of Arvei Psachim, it says, Arvei Psachim Saboch L'Mincha Lo Yoichal Adam Ad Shetechshach. Tosefes says, Makshim, Amai Yitzrich Ad Shetechshach. Why do you have to wait till it's dark to eat Pshita? First of all, why does it have to say that? Avad, if we're saying Lo Yoichal Adam on Arvei Psachim, it's for the purpose that he should have te'avoin for the matzah. So no avad. So what we would think that he shouldn't eat 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. He should eat already. I mean, avad. Even though according to the Tosefes later, not so posh, because Tosefes says ba'oisa suda, you don't lose your te'ovens. So that l'chora would answer this question. But void the Gemara gabe Shabbos is v'yomim tovim like Tanila. Never says this. So oime harimi kurbil, the gabe matzah davke beinen ad shetechshach, ki the tani b'tesefta pesach hamatzah v'hamoror mitzvosah mishetechshach, b'taime mishum de'kseva ochlo es habosa balaylo hazeh, umatzah umoror iskeshu lepesach, aval suda Shabbos v'yomim tovim motzi ocholom b'oidyoin. Ki the yomer perek tfilos hashachar, mispal odom shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos v'yomim kiddush hayom b'oidyoin. So Tosefes says that every Shabbos in Yom Tov, you can eat before nightfall, before the stars come out, because there's a din of Tosefes Shabbos. Over here, by Pesach matzah more require night, Laila hazeh, and everything is iskish lePesach. You need Laila, and therefore you can't do it in the Zman of Tosefes. So you see that the Rima Kurbil understands that he brings from the Gemara that Kiddush, that v'oimer Kiddush hayoim, he understands that Kiddush could only be on Shabbos. And Mamela, he knows from the fact that he can make Kiddush that the Kiddush hayoim already was chal. And therefore the Rima Kurbil understands that you could also eat the Suda in this time, which the Gemara doesn't discuss. And it's not necessarily true, because just like I told you about the Soichet Anovim, I mean, one would be able to make the Kiddush, and he would be able to, within the shear of Kiddush M'Kayim Suda, I mean, the Ramah says it should be within an hour, he would be able to be M'Kayim Kiddush M'Kayim Suda on Shabbos, even though the Kiddush was in the Zman of Tosefes. So you see that Tosefes understood that Kiddush requires Shabbos. And if it's Shabbos for Kiddush, it's Shabbos for Suda. And therefore, in Shabbos is v'yomim tovim, you could eat the Suda in the Zman of Tosefes. So we have 3 shitas. Yeah, they told me like what, between 20 and 22 minutes. I think we already went beyond that, but listen, what should we do?
Continue.
It's like Tosefes. It's like Tosefes, yeah. So we have over here 3 shitas. We have 3 shitas. The shita of the Miktas Min HaGoinim that hold that in the Zman of Tosefes you can't make Kiddush B'chlal. And that's because they hold that even if Tosefes is Min HaTorah, But it's just a din of Isser Malacha that I am not allowed to do what one is not allowed to do on Shabbos. But I didn't transform the time. I didn't make the day into Shabbos, and therefore Kiddush cannot be made in this time. The Shitas Harosh is that the Zman of Tosefes is Shabbos, but it's Shabbos only midirabanan. And since Kiddush is Doiraisa, you wouldn't be able to make the Kiddush. The reason that you can make the Kiddush is because Kiddush doesn't have to be on Shabbos. Kiddush could be before Shabbos, Samuch l'Shabbos, like the Rambam says. And we have the Shita of the Rimi Kollel, who says that when you Mekabel Shabbos, it becomes Shabbos min haTorah. And you could make Kiddush, and you could eat the Suda, because it became Shabbos. Okay, so now we could say something similar to the Dogul Merevova, that there are two types of Kabbalah, and that when you Mekabel Shabbos B'Tfilah, it's fundamentally different than being Mekabel Shabbos B'Dvarim Ba'alma. He understood the Dogul Merevova, that if you already daven Ma'ariv, it becomes Shabbos Gomer for Skila. But we'll say that in both cases it's a Shabbos Doiraisa only on the level of Isser Asay. But if you Mekabel B'Dvarim Ba'alma, it's just that I become the restrictions of Shabbos achal on me, but the time has not been transformed. Whereas with Amiras Baruch Hu, you made it night. And there's kama v'chama rayas to this yisoid from other parts of the Torah in Yoredeya, that if you're relying on the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, the Ovid Kemar Ovid, that from Plag HaMincha you could daven Ma'ariv, so it becomes night. I mean, Shitas HaTosefes, that you could at this time even learn Kriya Shema, Doiraisa, Kriya Shema Shel Arvis, which is an astounding thing how this became connected with Rabbi Yehuda's Plag HaMincha. But in any case, you see that by davening Ma'ariv, it's night. It's night. Masha'en Kain, if you verbally take upon yourself Kedushas Shabbos, you ushered in the Shabbos early, you brought the Kedushas Hayom of Shabbos onto Friday. But the Friday remained Friday. It's not Shabbos yet. So there's a difference between being Mekabel Shabbos B'Dvarim or being Mekabel Shabbos through Amiras Baruch Hu. Okay, now the thing is like this.
Mizmor Shir
So
would be the same?
Mizmor Shir would be like B'Dvarim. It wouldn't be like Tefillah. It wouldn't be like Tefillah. So we're gonna cut it short. I want to say like this, that the pshat. So the Goyen was against doing what the Magen Avram said. The Goyen holds Avada. He agrees that if you daven Ma'ariv, you can make Kiddush, because if you daven Ma'ariv, it's night. But if you didn't daven Ma'ariv and you just took upon yourself Shabbos, even though he agrees that you could take upon yourself Shabbos B'Dvarim, that's why he didn't comment on the Mizmor Shir L'Yom Shabbos in the Mechaber. But that level of Kabbalah Shabbos is not enough to be able to make Kiddush, because in order to make Kiddush, it has to be the Yom HaShabbos already. Not like the Rosh, like the Rimi Kollel. It has to be Shabbos. And in order for it to be Shabbos, in order for today to become tomorrow, you have to say Baruch Hu. And if you didn't say Baruch Hu, then today didn't become tomorrow. Now, I say like this, if you daven Ma'ariv of Shavuos early, it doesn't cut into the Tmimus. Why? Because, the day's over. I had full 49 days. Just because I made it night, I didn't cut into the Tmimus of the 49 days. It's no longer the 49th day. So that doesn't undercut the Tmimus. But making Kiddush, which is without the davening, is bringing the Kedusha of Shavuos into the 49th day. You're bringing the Kedusha of Shavuos into the 49th day, so you don't have Sheva Shabbos Tmimos Tehiyana, because like the Shlosh says, if it's Sfira, it's not Shavuos. If it's Shavuos, it's not Sfira. Well, what is he getting so worked up about? This is the point, because you made it Shavuos in the 49 days of Sfira. Okay, but it's still a little bit strange, because if we daven Ma'ariv already, the Magen Avram is talking about people that daven Ma'ariv. So if they daven Ma'ariv, they made it night. So how could there be a problem with making the Kiddush? You're making the Kiddush, Mishleim, if we're making the Kiddush without davening Ma'ariv, so everything I'm saying would make a lot of sense. But we're talking about making the Kiddush after you daven Ma'ariv. However, the pshat is like this: that the davening Ma'ariv only makes it night because of the Ovid Kirib Yehuda Ovid. We say that it's a suffix if the halach is like Rabbi Yehuda, like the Rabbanon, and we say that the Ovid Kirib Yehuda Ovid. But there's the shita of the Rabbanon that it's not night yet. So, but even according to the Rabbanon that it's not night yet, you could always be mekabel Tosefes without it being night. So even if you're daven Ma'ariv already, it's only night according to Rabbi Yehuda. But according to the Rabbanon, it's not the night yet. And you're making Kiddush, so you're being mekabel Tosefes Shabbos in the 49th day. Tosefes Shavuos in the 49th day. And that was the Chumrah of Rabbi Yaakov Pollack. Rabbi Yaakov Pollack. By the way, I want you to know, Rabbi Yaakov Pollack is responsible for bringing back Torah in Poland after the Gzeres Tachtat. They say that he was such a murder about Pilpul. All the Gedolei Hador of the next generation were his Talmidim, but they say that he said a Pilpul before Tkiyas Shofar. And they started blowing Shofar, and people started arguing about what he said, and they had to start again because people were so worked up about what he said. Yeah, this is a story they say about Rabbi Yaakov Pollack. Anyway, this is a chumrah from Rabbi Yaakov Pollack that you should make the Kiddush after Tzais HaKoychovim. Okay.